Everyone happy with? Good morning, everyone. My name is Helen McIntosh, and I'm the president of the South East London Chamber of Commerce. I'm delighted we're all here today to hear Brian Altimas talk about cybersecurity and are we really ready for a cyber attack? We are going to learn a lot from the expert. Brian has had 25 years working in technology risk and cybersecurity. He's worked for some of the very big organizations, including KPMG. He's now, as we can all see, his business is called Riverside Corp Consulting Limited, and Brian is in the high-tech part of Southeast London, actually on the North Greenwich Peninsula. So very, very high-tech up there they are. And what Brian wants to do is to bring all quality cybersecurity consultancy to small and medium-sized businesses, not just, you know, the big boys, but us smaller fry. So I'm going to hand over, and everyone knows that this is going to be, it's an interactive call. We can have questions at the end, but what I'd like you to do, if you have a question, please put up your the little yellow hand. And over to you, Brian.
Thanks very much. So good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Yes, are you ready for a cyber attack? And so before I get into what we're covering today, I want to say three things really. Cyber attackers are after your data, the crown jewels of your company, and your money. And it's really my job to help you make it that bit more difficult for the bad guys to get in, so that they move on to somebody else. So what are we going to cover today? Who are the cyber attackers? How cyber attacks work? Attacks in detail. We're going to look at two types of attack. There's many types of attack, but ransomware and business email compromise, I think, are two of the most scary attacks. And then how do we protect ourselves? How do we make it more difficult for the bad guys to get in? And then questions. Or as we said, we're going to have it interactive. So put your yellow hand up and I'll answer the questions as we go through. So who are the cyber attackers? Years ago, it used to be the 14-year-old in his bedroom doing it for thrill seeking. The world has moved on, unfortunately. And now it's this list here you can see. So nation state attackers, they're looking to nation state attacks on the Western world are looking to destabilize our economies and our infrastructure. Organized crime, they're after your money. They're looking to finance whatever horrible crime it is they're up to. Things like people smuggling and drug dealing, etc., etc. Hacktivist, they're the ones who have taken a dislike to you for some reason, and they want to ruin your reputation. The thrill seekers, as I said, this is what a lot of people still think hackers are. The 14-year-old in their bedroom, they will get into an organization and then boast about it online. Don't see so much of that these days, but it still happens. The next one, insiders. These are your team, your employees, if you're lucky enough to be employing people. And insider attacks come from two sources, really. The unfortunate individual who clicks on the link and lets the bad guys in, or for some reason, the disgruntled employee, or he's disgruntled for some reason, and he or she sets up an attack. And then finally, script kiddies, really treated with disdain by the top four groups, but they can equally cause as much damage to your organization and they will buy a tool on the dark web and let it loose to hack into your organization, and like all the other groups, get money or data from you. Just returning to the nation state attacks for a moment. Normally, the countries that attack the West are China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. And as I said, they're effectively after to destabilize our economy and infrastructure. So how does a cyber attack work? It's quite simple, really. In an untargeted attack, the malware is just released onto the internet in a variety of ways to see who falls for it. And they're looking to indiscriminately target as many devices, services, or users as possible. All attacks are really looking for what we call in the technology world vulnerabilities, but in English, weaknesses in your IT. And they use these methods to find these weaknesses and exploit them. So we're all familiar, I'm sure, with phishing emails, WhatsApp messages, text messages. They just send a large number looking for sensitive information, and then they will, when you fall for that, they've got your personal information, and if you're really unlucky, your bank details. Water holing. This is either setting up a fake website to look like a real website, or they compromise a legitimate one to exploit visiting users. And again, really after your payment card details so they can get hold of your money. Ransomware we'll be looking at in more detail, but again, usually comes in via phishing emails. Some unfortunate person clicks on the link and it encrypts your data in return for a ransom. Well, I talked about some war stories there when we look at that in detail. And then effectively scanning for weaknesses in the IT. They set a tool up which scans the internet looking for what are known as unpatched weaknesses, which I'll talk about a bit later, and rather technically, the open ports. So when the pandemic struck a couple of years ago, effectively IT departments opened up opened up ports on your laptop, on your IT. The remote desktop protocol one is probably one of the most common to allow you to work remotely. And again, we'll talk about how we can protect ourselves from these a bit later. Then there's targeted attacks. So you or your organization has been singled out because the attacker has a specific interest in you. And these are pretty scary, to be quite honest. The preparation for the attack could take months while they find the best way to deliver their exploits to your system or your users. Again, how are these attacks delivered? Again, by a phishing email, specific type of phishing email, which is targeted to the individual to deliver a business email compromise. And again, I'll talk about a specific client that I'm currently working with who was very lucky not to lose an enormous amount of money. Or they use, they target an individual to deliver a botnet, which is a way of delivering a distributed denial of service attack on your IT. Effectively takes down the whole organization. And I've clicked next screen too early. And then subverting the supply chain. So to attack equipment or software that's being delivered to the organization, and develop a weakness in that so that they can attack you later. So stages of a cyber attack. As I said earlier, all cyber attacks are looking to take advantage of weaknesses or vulnerabilities in your IT setup. So the attackers are surveying your IT setup, looking for these vulnerabilities or weaknesses. When they get to the stage where they've identified those vulnerabilities, they'll deliver the malware. And then they will breach those vulnerabilities and get into your organization, deliver the malware, and achieve their goals. Very simple, really. Looks like any other business process that organizations have in place. And hacking these days is a global business. It's quite frightening the way that organizations are set up, and they now outsource processes that they're not, it's not their core skill to others on the dark web to help them take advantage. So let's have a look at a couple of attacks in detail. Ransomware. I'm sure we've all heard about it. Funnily enough, in 2022, well, through the pandemic, ransomware attacks went through the roof. In 2022, they've actually started to recede a little bit. And the main reason for this is that paying the ransom has more or less become illegal. And so it's much more difficult for the attackers to get hold of your money. We'll cover about the payment of ransoms later. But ransomware is a form of malware. Malware is malicious software. Ransomware encrypts your data, demanding a ransom to release your data. How does it get in? Through phishing attack, which we covered earlier. As I said earlier, the unpatched software and operating systems. You visit an infected or a fake website. You click on a link, either sent to you in a phishing attack or a link on social media, or you're specifically targeted by social engineering. They'll send an email to you as the head of your company, and they will have investigated you, and they will have found something that they think will make you click on the link. Examples of that I've seen are that the CEO of a company was having an extension bill, and they sent supposedly from a neighbour an email saying, "Do you realise the skip company has dented your new BMW?" with a picture on it. He clicked on that picture of a dented BMW, and that let them into his organisation. It's as simple as that. And when people think their possessions have been damaged, they're more than likely going to click on that link to see what's happened. And then code injection, either to websites or apps that you're having implemented or using. And the code injection obviously contains the malware, lets the bad guys in. Should you pay the ransom? No. None of my existing clients have ever paid a ransom. And where I work with a number of people who have come to me where they've paid the ransom, and they still haven't got their data back. The guys aren't interested in you. They're after your money. So there's no guarantee that you will get your data back if you pay the ransom. The key that they give you to decrypt your data doesn't remove the malware from your computer. You'll still be infected. You'll probably be financing organized crime. At the moment, you'll probably be contravening sanctions as well. So it's more or less been made illegal to pay the ransom, especially in the US and the UK, Australia as well. And if you do pay the ransom, you're going to be seen as an easy touch, and you're more likely to be targeted in the future, either by the same gang or by somebody else. So another gang. Yes, so I'm working with a number of people who have been targeted by ransomware. A lot of small companies say to me, yeah, cybersecurity, we don't need to worry about it, do we? They're after the big guys, like the big banks, the big organizations like the NHS. Well, that used to be true 10, 15 years ago. But they're now targeting everyone. I'm working with a company, small firm of accountants. I think it's 7 employees that were targeted by ransomware. They managed their own IT, which we'll come on to later. And unfortunately, the IT that they were using was targeted by a ransomware gang because they'd notified the company of the IT that this organization was using, told them about security vulnerabilities, and they did nothing about it. So they released ransomware for this company's users. This firm of accountants hadn't seen that there'd been an update to the operating system of the network storage devices that they were using, and unfortunately became victim because they hadn't updated the operating systems of these devices that they were using. The backup didn't work, and this attack took place in March, just as all accountants are finalising tax returns, etc. And unfortunately, their last backup that worked was a couple of months previously. So while we were able to make sure they didn't have to pay the ransom, they had to recreate a couple of months worth of work. Another organization I'm working with was a 10-seat organization. Fortunately, their backups did work, and we were able to restore and then clean up the malware out of the organization so that they didn't have to pay the ransom. But it's probably the worst day of your business life if you do become a victim of a ransomware attack. Then business email compromise. This is a targeted attack on your organization. As I said, they've researched who they're going to attack in your organization. They work out, they observe how you interact with your team and any key external organizations, and then they strike. They send an email from the person because they've got access to your email system and your email box. They can send an email from you, and it's usually requesting money. So I'm working with an organization at the moment, attacked earlier this year, was a private equity house, small private equity house, 20 employees, the CEO, and an outsourced accountant. Unfortunately, the CEO clicked on a link, thought he'd got away with it, but he let the bad guys in. They sat in his organization, watching his emails, observing his emails, and worked out how to send an email from him using exactly the same language that he would use. Then they sent, when they realized is that a question, Shabir, or are you just stretching? When they worked out that how he interacted with his team and the accountant, and they realized that both the accountant and he were busy, they sent an email from him to the accountant saying, please set up this new supplier. Looked like an email from the CEO, so the accountant set up this new supplier. Then when they realized that the CEO was traveling, they sent an email to the accountant saying, we've missed a payment deadline, please pay this supplier £100,000. Fortunately, what they'd missed was the accountant's payment authority was £80,000. So she prepared the payment advice, sent it to the CEO, whose flight had fortunately been delayed. He picked up the email, looked at it and said, who are these people? What are we paying them £100,000 for? And then they worked out that they'd been attacked. Fortunately, the CEO knew me and called me in. We've fortunately cleaned out the attackers from the email system, and I'm still working with them to put more preventative work in to make it more difficult for them to attack. But that's really scary type of attack. So how do we protect ourselves? Don't trust anything. We call it a zero trust approach. Yeah, just don't trust anything. And that is really going to help you protect yourselves. Back up, and back up. Back up in multiple places. I would suggest using a cloud backup service. There's a number out there, people like Acronis and Zine. And the reason I say that is because they will have their own cybersecurity. So they back up your data into their cloud, and they will protect their cloud from attack. There used to be, or there is, a trend for mirroring your data. So, and if it's absolutely critical for your company to mirror your data, yeah, mirror your data, but make sure you've got at least one backup that's not mirroring your data. To be honest, for companies of our size, I can't think of a reason why you would need to mirror your data. But if you have got that critical reason to mirror your data, carry on doing it. But the reason I say don't mirror your data is because if the malware gets into your primary source of data, it's immediately mirrored to your mirrored backup. So also make sure you've got at least one backup, say a daily backup that's not mirrored. And this will make it a bit more difficult for the malware to get into your backups. And make sure you test your restore process and make sure your backups are up to date, unlike the company that I told you about a few minutes ago. Make sure that the backups work. Make sure you have multi-factor or two-factor accreditation on all your critical accounts. So all your cloud accounts, your Microsoft 365, your Google Documents, etc. Any critical apps like your CRM system, you're using, please use 2FA, because that's just another little hurdle that's going to make it more difficult for the bad guys to get into your IT. As I outlined earlier, bit technical here, but make sure the remote desk protocol ports and any other unused ports are disabled in your IT. And if you use public Wi-Fi, please don't do it without a VPN. Public Wi-Fi's in your local coffee shop, etc., are one of the key areas where the bad guys will be lurking and waiting to attack. Then we come on to my favorite subject, operating system updates. All the big tech providers, in the middle Tuesday of the month, it's known in the cyber world as Patch Tuesday, release updates to their operating systems. Make sure, if your IT isn't managed by an IT support company, that your PC is configured to accept these updates. All the big tech companies send out notification of what's in these updates, and they're all critical security updates. The way that really the cybersecurity industry works is the big tech companies become aware of a vulnerability in their systems, and they develop a patch, what's known as a patch, really a plaster to close the weakness in the IT. Or researchers are continually looking at big tech, and they're actually paid to find these vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities are, the patches for these vulnerabilities are sent out middle Tuesday of every month. If it's a really serious one, it'll be set, they won't wait for the middle Tuesday, they'll send it out earlier. But make sure your IT is configured to accept these patches. If you're unfortunate enough that you're running legacy systems where the patch, the updates could affect the operation of these legacy systems because they're old, make sure your IT is managed, and your IT company will look at these to make sure that your systems will still work. Pay for your antivirus, anti-malware. I still use this term, but it's more developed now, or certainly the paid versions are more developed now, and they'll be using artificial intelligence looking for vulnerabilities and attacks that could be coming from outside. Make sure your emails are scanned, incoming and outgoing. That will pick up suspicious links and quarantine those emails. As I outlined earlier, make sure all your critical apps and other systems also get updated on Patch Tuesday. If you're a one-man band and you're just using a PC, make sure that the firewall is on there and properly configured. If you're a bigger organization, make sure you have an organization-wide firewall and it's configured correctly. Passwords, don't we love them? Make sure you use secure passwords. Every month, we get notifications in the cyber world of weak passwords. And the number of people who are still using password with the O changed for a 0, or password 123, or your favorite football team, or other sports team, please don't use those, because when the bad guys are looking for weak passwords, these, just like that, they'll be hacked. Use a password manager. There's many out there, and password managers will generate passwords. According to my password manager, I've got 200 or 300 passwords. Each one of them is unique. Because of what I do, I use 16-character passwords, which are a mixture of uppercase, lowercase, special characters, etc. And a password manager will work on your phone, work on your tablet, work on your computer. You can have an organization-wide password manager, and it just makes life easier. If you don't like the idea of using complex passwords, it will configure a password phrase for you, which is the current advice by people like our National Cybersecurity Centre. So a password phrase, if I'm currently sitting in a room, looking around, there's a picture on the wall, I can see a lampshade and a window. So my password phrase would be picture, lampshade, and a window. Yeah, make sure all your devices are protected. And I really would advise you to have your IT managed by a reputable IT management company, or we call them managed service providers in the industry. I know that there's a couple on the call here who are, I would suggest you have a chat to if your IT is not managed. Social media. Think about what you post to your social media and professional sites like LinkedIn. The more you post about your life on social media, the more it can be picked up by the undesirables and used to attack you. Review your privacy settings on social media to make sure that, again, you're not releasing too much personal information to the bad guys. And just before I move on to the next point, if you are attacked by ransomware and your data is encrypted, you have to report that to the ICO. Don't believe if you go to your law company, your company solicitor, for advice. If you are suffering from a ransomware attack, if they suggest paying the ransom will limit the fines that the ICO will levy on you, that is incorrect. There's been a letter recently from a joint letter from the Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO, and our National Cybersecurity Centre to the Law Society, asking them to tell lawyers not to advise people to pay ransoms because it won't limit the fines. And again, you probably won't get your data back. Phishing emails, if you receive phishing emails, there's a link there, report@phishing.gov.uk, and they'll look at it and advise whether it is actually a phishing email or you were too worried about it. And if you think you've come across a fake or a scam website, that link, you can report that to our National Cybersecurity Centre. And finally, train yourself and train your team. You and your people can be the strongest defense in your cybersecurity. And if you're aware, you've been trained this morning, you're now aware of how these guys get in and what you can do about it. You can be your strongest link, your strongest protection, or you can be your weakest link. Yeah, so come and talk to me. Any questions that you haven't thought of yet? Hi, Martine.
I just wonder, What password managers you recommend? Any in particular?
There's a number out there. They're all reasonably good. Funny enough, I did a LinkedIn post about them just before I went on a holiday. So there's a number out there. My favorite at the moment, the one that I use, is 1Password. And as I say, they integrate with your phone, your tablets, your PCs. As I say, I've got 200 or 300 passwords, and I've got no idea what any of them are. They
Yes.
just, my password manager just integrates with everything that I do. It can take a little bit of setting up, but if always happy to help you set them up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's Helen. I've got my hand up. Brian, can you just go over, when you're saying, the dangers when you're in coffee shops and like that, the free Wi-Fi, but what's a VPN, please?
Sorry, yeah, I used the lingo and didn't speak it out. Virtual private network. So that effectively provides a protected tunnel from your PC over the public Wi-Fi, but because it's a protected tunnel, the bad guys won't see you using it.
I'm with you.
So common one out there is NordVPN. NORD VPN.
Sorry, I talked over you. Can you repeat that?
Yes, sorry. Yep, a common one is NORD, NORD VPN.
Okay, lovely.
Julie, sorry?
Sorry, I was just going to throw no. Has anyone else got any techie questions?
Jilly's got a question there.
I have. Yes, thanks for that, Brian. Thanks for frightening us this morning. I'm intrigued as to why Password Manager is safe when you've said we've got all these other vulnerabilities. Can you explain that?
Right, yes, I can. Yep, it's one of the most common questions I'm asked about password managers. The companies that provide password managers recognize that they're a rich target to be attacked. So they employ military grade cybersecurity defenses to protect their organizations, because they recognize that if all our passwords are stolen, their business, not only is our business gone down the chute, but their business has gone down the toilet as well. So yeah, they as I say, they employ military grade cyber protection to protect their organizations.
Right, thank you.
Shabir.
Yeah, thanks for the overview. It's really interesting. I suppose the coffee cafes and I do log into the airport Wi-Fi every time I go away, and as you probably know, I do seem to go away a lot. So and I'll be off next week. So NordVPN, will that sort of help secure my phone if I'm going to any airport Wi-Fi or any public Wi-Fi?
Any public Wi-Fi, yeah.
How do you get it? Do you just sort of search for it and download it and install it?
If you do a search, if you go to your app store, do a search for NordVPN, that will take you there.
Right. And secondly, because I'm going to be camping for 3 weeks in France, and the campsite has a Wi-Fi, a really bad one, so that would still protect me there, deep in the forest.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think you've stunned us all, Brian.
Hayley's got a question there.
Hi. Hello. I have a question about organizations using Google Workspace and using that password manager. Is Google Password Manager any good? for organizations, or do you recommend something else?
Yes, I mean, yeah, Google. They employ thousands of security professionals to help them secure their organization. As from a risk management point of view, I would say use something else. But yeah, it's actually fine.
Okay, and also, so just I'm sorry, I'm actually in marketing. I'm not an IT person in any way, which is why I'm on this webinar. We don't actually have in the marketing team, we don't have a lot of access to client data and things. But we just use Windows Defender as an antivirus. And we've been told by previous IT companies that's sufficient. Is that the case, or should we be looking at, certainly for our more core team, getting something paid?
Windows Defender is a lot better than it used to be. And again, Microsoft employ thousands of people to keep their own environment safe. But really, I would recommend using a specialist company for your antivirus.
Okay. Yeah, well, possibly a separate conversation, but yeah, we don't currently have an IT provider. So yeah, it's something we used to, but then we moved offices and locations, and they could no longer look after us. So yeah, make contact.
So yeah, so everything that I've spoken about then for you guys is really important to make sure that everything is, you are getting the monthly updates from the security companies, from the big tech companies.
I know certainly, personally I do, but I think, yeah, training staff, that's quite a good, we assume people know not to click on phishing links, but they don't always know. No. So,
and especially if they're targeted, as like the case that I outlined, where the CEO's pride and joy BMW was supposedly dented.
Yeah, and that's an emotion.
If you're targeted like that, they're playing on your emotions.
Yeah.
Thank you for that story, actually, Brian, because that really did resonate with me, because I think I'm ultra careful. I think I am, but if I had that sort of email, someone had hit my very cheap Hyundai Kona, I'd still want to open the picture and have a look at it. So,
exactly.
So yeah, interesting. Thank you.
That's very good. If I can say, even for the chamber, we have specialists, paid for security. We've got out, it's all outsourced, and because it's just so important. And Hayley, I think the problem is, if you're not really using these things, it's when you're attacked. Then we're all very clever, with hindsight. That's my only comment. And I can see Lara's hand up.
Indeed, yeah, we've got several hands up here. So, morning, Lara.
Morning. Thank you so much for that useful and yes, very scary. I'm not going to sleep tonight kind of talk. I wanted to just ask you, have you heard about Apolloio?
Yes.
Do you know what they do? Because I've seen them sent an email to me saying, oh, we have your data, but I don't know how it happened. So I'm just trying to find out a bit more from anyone I know about them. Because
what?
Well, they've got a website that lists literally everything, like the technologies that people use. And I'm not sure how they've discovered that information. So when I discovered that we were on their platform, I changed all of our passwords, obviously.
Yeah, Apollo.io is a sales organization. So they've picked up your data from social media, somewhere like that, and they're targeting you to sell effectively. So I'd block them.
Yeah, so we did try to, but I didn't find sufficiently helpful information online about them, and I thought there might have been hackers, so I was just, you know. But thank you.
No, as opposed to hackers, they're the next worst people on the internet. Salespeople. Sorry, any salespeople on here?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That's all right, Mona.
Brian, thanks for talking about the ransomware. It's really scary because I remember a few of my friends, they got attacked by ransomware, or they all paid for the ransom. But don't do that, like Brian said, because no one got their data back.
No.
So my question is, what if we got attacked by the ransomware and we really need to get the data back? Of course, we won't pay the ransom, but is there something Brian can help?
Yes. So, again, it's, as I said, it's making sure that you've got multiple backups available. And as I say, I would suggest using a cloud provider for your backups. And because they will have their own cybersecurity people looking to protect their environment, making it less likely that the malware will get into that backup.
Okay.
But also, if you're a one-man band, also you could back up to a hard disk. Just make sure that it's not attached to your computer all the time, so that the malware transfers across to your backups.
Yeah, thanks. But what I mean is that in the worst scenario, and if I haven't got the most updated backup, because I try to back on a regular basis, but sometimes I still forgot. And if we really need to get the data back, is it something we can do? Yeah.
I mean, call me, and I'll. But it's so if you were attacked, the way that I would work, I would come in, work out what has attacked you, what malware has attacked, who has attacked you, and then clean out the malware. Look at your backups, make sure that they're not infected, and then restore effectively. And then we would do preventative work to make sure you weren't attacked again.
Thanks. Very straightforward. I feel
it is. Yeah. I mean, the working out who and what is attacked and cleaning it up. It sounds easy, but it's not. But yeah.
Thanks.
Theo.
Brian, thank you for being. I'm in the same industry as you, so I really enjoyed the discussion. Thank you very much. Very quick question, because I need to jump onto another session. What are you finding is the biggest obstacle to small and medium enterprises adopting the good security practices that you're discussing?
It's really, as I said during the presentation, that small companies still don't think they're going to be attacked, and they are. They're as I say, they're either a deliberate attack on the organization, or they become a casualty because they're using IT that's not been updated, and they become a casualty of a wider attack. If you think back to the best example of becoming a casualty of a wider attack, if you remember the WannaCry attack in 2017, which took out the NHS weren't the target, but because they were still on an outdated, they were still using Windows XP, which was dead and gone years previously. They became a victim of that attack. And many small organizations take that attitude. Well, my Windows isn't broken. Why do we need to update to Windows 10 or Windows 11. Well, your Windows is broken because it's no longer supported.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks. I hope a lot of people have taken note of that today. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks a lot,
Theo.
Theo.
Thank you.
Martine.
Yeah, sorry to jump in again, but as you know, I work for several different clients, so I have access to all sorts of things for them. So how can I make sure that I'm not going to, well, make sure that I can protect them when I'm sort of getting into their, I have access to their emails, their CRM systems and all sorts of things.
So yeah, it's making sure that your own security is good. If you log on to their email systems, do you, and other systems? Yeah. So it's making sure that your own security is good, and making sure that you're using secure passwords. Hopefully the organisation employs 2FA and insists that you use it.
Some don't. No. Okay. I need to get them. I need to get them to do it then.
So
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to be the channel for an attack on them.
No. Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
And I think we've got Lara again.
Sorry, I am not always in a place where I can put my video on, but I hope you can see me. I have a question about your website. Is that saying coming soon?
That's saying coming soon. Yeah. Yeah, I've been so busy, I haven't had a chance to do the final bits to get it live yet.
Okay, so do you prefer a phone call then?
Either phone call, contact me through LinkedIn. My LinkedIn address is there as well, and my email address is there.
Okay, all right.
And
thank
Brian, may I just hop in there, because I think it's been jaw-dropping this morning, and I'm going to ask Theo that the slide, that we've got all the details. We'll circulate it to everyone who's been on the call today, and then we'll also let everyone know, when it's going to be up. So Theo, you happy to do that? My Theo, Helen's Theo.
Absolutely.
Super Helen's Theo. That would be good. And actually, I've got one. This is again when I made the notes. What's 2FA, please?
Two-factor accreditation. So two-factor accreditation is available on practically everything. But I mean, the most common example of it is when you log onto your bank account. They will ask you for a second factor to make sure it's you.
Well,
there's a number of ways of doing it. And if you look at most systems, they will say, do you want to use an app, or do you want a text sent to your phone? I would always recommend using an app, really. So for instance, Microsoft 365, I use their app, their authenticator. For Google, again, I use their authenticator because it just works with their systems. But for practically everything else, I use an app called Authy, and it's you have it on your phone and very easy to set up. When you say to whatever system it is, and even your social media, you want to set up 2FA, it will come up with a what's it called? Barcode that you scan, a QR code that you scan, and that will add it to the app, and then it will take you through the process to complete the setup.
And what was that called again? What was the name of the app?
Well, as I say, for getting into my Microsoft 365, I used Microsoft's own authenticator. Similarly, to get into Google's accounts, I use their authenticator. But for every other app, I've got it's Authy, AUTHY.
AUTHY. Okay, brilliant.
My goodness, we've been making notes, haven't we?
I have.
Martin and me. So,
and I'll just say that any recommendations that I've given out today, I have no association with these organisations. I don't get paid at all, or it's just my current favourites.
Yeah, well, that's worth it.
That's it. Well, I'd like to thank you, Brian. It's been really illuminating this morning. And we'll send all the details round, and I'll certainly be watching the, because I'll be able to watch the little video. And then I think, oh, I've learned a few, well, I've definitely learned a lot, but we've all learned a little bit of jargon today. So I'd just like to say thank you so much, Brian. And I'm sure we'll ask you, to do something for us later in the year, if that's all right.
Absolutely. Yep, love to.
We'll do that. Okay.
Fabulous. Thank you, Brian.
So, okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.